Honest question. Should the Dodgers be worried? I'm not talking about making the playoffs, but should they be worried?
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans. Welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. I've been a baseball podcaster for a while now, and this is my sixth full season here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We're beginning August, and for the next 2 months, you will be able to get double your pal Sully. I am hosting Locked On MLB every day. I am also hosting Locked On A's every day. I'm going to be doing so right through the end of the regular season. And I'm actually planning, for the lack of a better word, kind of an end of the season spectacular for Locked On A's, as I became the interim host of Locked On A's. I was supposed to do it for a week, and I wound up doing it for a full season. I've had a lot of fun. Following this A's team. Believe it or not, it's been a fun ride. And I'm going to be going to the last game for the A's at the Oakland Coliseum. Unless there's a wild Joe Biden change of the script, it's going to be the final game. So I'm doing this for a couple more months, and have fun. Check it out. Check out the show. If you enjoy what I'm doing here, you may enjoy what I do with Locked On A's. It's eerily similar, but it's more focused on the A's. Hey, let's take care of a couple bits of business first. First of all, today's sponsor is Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your next purchase. And let's go quickly to the trivia question. The answer, a couple people, Stephen Colatera said the answer was David Justice. It's not correct. The question was, who was the last person to win the World Series MVP who was acquired at the trade deadline? The answer is Jorge Soler. Scott Horstmeyer got it correct. I threw that out there. Sometimes an obvious one, you go like, wait a minute, am I overthinking it? It happens sometimes. A great post-trade deadline pickup. Two great post-trade line. God, easy for you to say. We're doing it live. Two relatively recent post-trade deadline pickups wound up becoming postseason MVPs for that team. Justin Verlander. Remember, he was acquired in August after the trade deadline because the Tigers put him through waivers and no one claimed him. And the Yankees did not trade for him. And he went to the Astros, and he picked up 2 World Series rings for his trouble. One people recognize. And Cody Ross was waived by the Florida Marlins and picked up by the San Francisco Giants in time to homer twice against Roy Halladay in the National League Championship Series, leading the Giants to a World Series title, winning the NLCS MVP. We're going to talk a little bit about, some people had some comments about the trade deadline. I have a big comment about the trade deadline that I'm going to save for Friday's show. I'm going to talk a little more in depth because philosophically, I think we have to change our point of view regarding the trade deadline. But I do want to talk a little bit about, some people got on me a little bit about what I said about Baltimore. I guess some people think I'm being hypocritical or something. I'm not 100% sure, but I am going to address it. I also don't understand the Angels. I don't get the Angels. And by the way, I checked out the Super Halo Brothers they did a great show on Locked On Angels. Check them out. And they don't understand it either. But earlier today, I listened to my buddy Jeff Snyder over at Locked On Dodgers. And I don't want to say Dodger fans should be in full panic mode. but they should be very concerned. And there's a couple of things about the Dodgers I don't quite understand everything that's happening here. First and foremost, they're obviously a playoff team. They're going to make the postseason. Unless the Dodgers turn into the Chicago White Sox, and I'll talk about that because I don't think we've all discussed enough about what's going on there. But unless it's an absolute cataclysmic month that they have, they're going to make the postseason. They're 2.5 games behind Philadelphia, 3 games back in the loss column for the best record in the National League. They have as of this recording, their lead in the National League West is still a pretty healthy 4.5 games going into the final 2 months. And they have a 5-game lead in the loss column over red-hot San Diego. San Diego's won 9 of their last 10 games. They're on an absolute roll. The Dodgers did not have a particularly good month of July. The Dodgers' July was, even though they've won 6 out of their last 10, so they've kind of rebounded. But, they started the season at the end of April. They were 19-13. Then they went 17-10 in May, solid May. 16-10 in June, solid June. Then they went 11-13 in July. Again, not Sorry there, folks. I had an internet outage. I'm very sorry about that. We had a break in the internet, and I had to quickly reboot. I'm sorry about that. For those of you listening, for those of you watching, those of you who are listening, I'll edit that out. My humblest apologies for a big old internet outage. We're doing it live, folks. When you do it live, sometimes as bad things happen. I don't know what happened, but I get the just suddenly get said your internet connection is off. Anyway, let's get back down to brass tacks here. I'm talking about the Dodgers. The Dodgers had a thank you, Terrence Dunning, for saying I am forgiven. Where was I? I got a little off center by there. Yeah, the Dodgers had a lousy July. They had a losing July, and the fact that they did beat up the Red Sox. The Red Sox are struggling right now, and they beat the Giants, and so they took advantage of some bad teams. But they got swept by Philadelphia. They let the Tigers walk off on them, and this is a problem too. They've been having a bunch of walk-off losses. They had a walk-off loss to Houston. They had a walk-off loss to San Diego in a game where they led by 5 runs. They had back-to-back walk-off losses to Detroit. They are losing games where they had the lead. They are losing games where they should be winning big time. And they've also done some weird things. The Flaherty acquisition makes sense to me, and he was probably saved for Skubal, who wasn't traded, and Anderson, who wasn't traded, and Crochet, who wasn't traded. So the big ones we thought might have been dealt did not wind up getting dealt. So they wound up getting Flaherty, who was probably the best thing available on the menu, the best item on the menu. They did let go of Paxton. They traded him to Boston. I still don't understand why. For a team that's loaded with injuries, Brazier's on the injured list. Hurt is obviously on the injured list. The dudes are literally hurt. They're bringing in Michael Kopech, who could be good, but Yamamoto's on the injured list. Buehler's on the injured list. Knack has been sent down to the farm. It didn't strike me as a team that had a surplus of pitching to get rid of a pitcher like, Paxton, not a Cy Young contender, but not bad. Stone is a good pitcher. Glasnow has been good. But, Yamamoto has pitched 74 innings this year. When's he coming back? And I got news for you. Kershaw looked bad. He looked bad. And you know what also looked bad? The lineup without Freddie Freeman right now. Now, all this will be prologue if the Dodgers are relatively healthy and are in a position where they're not only relatively healthy, but they have a cushion and are in a playoff spot. This will all be forgotten if they wind up having a couple of decent weeks in October. But we all know what's on the line with this team. This team has to win the World Series. You can't win a World Series and then bring in Freddie Freeman and bring in Yamamoto and bring in Ohtani and expect anything less than that. The whole point of doing all that, they were already a 100-win team. The whole point is they have to win a World Series title. Does anybody think this team is going to win the World Series the way they're playing right now? Yes, I know. The National League, the last bunch of years have been filled with teams that did not look great going into the postseason. I wound up going all the way to the World Series. But at what point are you concerned if you're a Dodger fan? At what point do you look up and say, hey, wait a minute, we aren't playing the way we're supposed to be playing? Hey, wait a minute, our bullpen is extraordinarily vulnerable. Hey, our lineup is very inconsistent. Hey, we could be beaten quickly. Now, they're probably not going to have to play the wild card series, but for the last couple of years, that's not been a positive thing. They haven't looked like a championship caliber team for a few weeks now. And the big acquisitions they've made the cosmetic changes. They brought in a starting pitcher. They brought in some relievers. They brought in Kiermaier to help shore up their outfield a little bit. But I wonder, if you're a Dodger fan, at what point do you get concerned? At what point do you look at this team and say, hey, wait a minute, there's something about this team that just isn't clicking. And we're beyond the point right now where you can go get help. What you've got to hope for is that Betts and Freeman come back soon, that Yamamoto comes back soon, and that you figure out what the hell you could do with Kershaw. Kershaw is arguably the greatest Los Angeles Dodger in history. But do you know what? For what I've seen, he may be done. He may be done. But don't worry, Dodger fans. Life could be a lot worse. When we come back, we're going to talk about a team that I don't even think you realize how bad they are in Chicago. Hey, let's hear from our new friends over at Liquid IV. It's hot. You may notice it's really hot. It's the summertime. It's August. I recently went to a game in Sacramento. I went to a game to see the Sacramento River Cats. And oh my God, the sun was sitting right on top of me. Okay? You got to make sure you hydrate. You got to make sure you don't get sick. But you also want to enjoy a nice, fun treat this summertime. Don't forget to hydrate with Liquid IV's Popsicle Firecracker flavor. It's a surefire summer hit. You get hydrated with electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients from the #1 powdered hydration brand in America. Because baseball and summer go together like Liquid IV and indulgent hydration. The key word here is indulgent hydration. Now, you can blast off with the iconic summer flavor of popsicle firecracker, a festive blend of citrus-fueled lemon lime, tart cherry, and raspberry flavors, or as we used to call it in Massachusetts, tat cherry. Find all your favorite flavors on this website, from acai berry to lemon lime to pina colada. In case it is not raining out, you need to get yourself hydrated. Tear, pour, live more. One stick plus 16 ounces of water hydrates better than water alone. Powered by LIV Hydroscience, an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink, 8 essentials and nutrients, and 8 essential vitamins and nutrients, and always non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free. So no more thirsty summers. No more thirsty summers when you indulge in hydration with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order at Liquid IV. And when you go to liquidiv.com and use MLB at checkout, that's 20% off your first order when you shop for better hydration today using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com. That place again is liquidiv.com. All right, let's hear a little bit from our good friends over at SupplyHouse. You know all about SupplyHouse. SupplyHouse is the site that you need to go to if you are in the skilled trades. SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands. Get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folk in the business, and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trade get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's Free Trade Master program. Free Trade Master get access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at SupplyHouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at SupplyHouse.com. That site again is SupplyHouse.com. Hey, where do you go for your sports news, your sports takes, for all your sports information? May I recommend you make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories in all sports. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channel app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. We're doing it live. Terrence Dunning says, Terrence Durning says, Dodgers only 4.5 games of the Padres. Could they drop to a wild card? Yeah, it's possible, but they'd still make the playoffs. They would still make the playoffs. And you've seen wild card teams, the Nats, the Phillies, the Diamondbacks, the Rangers for that matter. You know, you've seen wild card teams make it to the World Series. So all will be forgiven if they win. I mean, lest we forget last year, the Texas Rangers looked not weak. They looked downright pitiful heading into the last. They couldn't win a game at the end of August and into September. And there was a period of time where they fell out of the playoffs altogether. There was a period of time where the Mariners were in first place in September. The Mariners didn't make the playoffs. The Rangers had a parade. No one's ever going to remember that. You know, if they win, no one will ever remember it. The 2 Cardinal teams that won the World Series under Tony La Russa were teams that were far from their best team. The 06 team barely had a winning season. And they just got hot at the right time. And the 2011 team, the only reason the 2011 team even made the playoffs is because the Braves collapsed down the stretch. No one would remember those teams at all. At all. And Tony La Russa had some not good. He had some great Cardinal teams. The team in 2005 should have won the pennant over Houston. And after the Pujols home run, and they were going back to St. Louis, I thought they're definitely going back. So winning it all will ease any pain. Speaking of pain, the Chicago White Sox, I didn't realize how bad they were. You will have to forgive me. I haven't been following the White Sox that closely. The only thing I've really been following is, are they worse than the A's? Now, I'm going to make a weird comparison, and in my mind, this makes sense. In the book Jurassic Park, the scientists are keeping track of the dinosaurs, but they're only keeping track to make sure the dinosaur population doesn't fall below a certain number. And at one point, one of the characters says, wait a minute, we're seeing they haven't fallen below that number, but are we seeing how many there actually are? And they changed the thing. And they saw there were so many more dinosaurs than they thought because they were breeding. That's kind of how I've been viewing the White Sox, because I've also been doing Locked On A's. And so I've mainly been checking the White Sox to make sure, are the A's doing better than the White Sox? Because one of the goals I had for the A's at the beginning of the year was, don't be the worst team in baseball. And I check, hey, the White Sox are worse. Hey, the White Sox are worse. But I haven't really taken a good long look at the team. And for Pedro Grifol, who's now in his second year with the team, I would be stunned if there's a third. Not that it's his fault, but I don't think you realize how bad the White Sox have been. Now, granted, at the end of April, they had 6 wins total. In May and June, they finished each month with 9 wins. Little did we know that that would be the Mount Everest for this team. Do you have any idea how bad they've been in July? Eric Fede, their fine pitcher, won 2 starts in July for the White Sox. He won a start on July 3rd and on July 10th. And on the 5th of July, Kopech saved a 3-2 win over the Marlins. Those are the only 3 wins that the White Sox have had since the end of June. One of them was on June 10th. So it was technically July 10th. So it was technically mid-July, just barely. And they lost again that day because they played a doubleheader. So Eric Fede won 2 games, and Kopech saved the other one. And those 2 pitchers are now traded. The White Sox played 25 games in July and lost 22 of them. They clinched a losing season before August. This team could lose 120 games. We could start talking about this team along with the 1962 Mets and the 2003 Detroit Tigers. This is one of, just take a moment, breathe it in. This White Sox team is one of the worst teams in the history of baseball. I say that with no pleasure. I like the White Sox. I do. Think about where we were in 2021. The White Sox won the division under La Russa. It was a weird pickup, but they won the division. And they had locked up this team. The Luis Roberts, the Jose Abreu's, the Tim Andersons, the Eloy Jimenez Jr.'s, the Michael Kopechs of the world were all there. They signed a lot of them to long-term deals, and there wasn't another team in the division who looked like they were going to be a dominating team. And the White Sox were within contention in September of 2022. If they had anyone other than La Russa managing that team, they probably would have. Would they have clinched that division? I don't know, but they certainly would have gotten closer. In a year and a month, they have gone from the defending division champs with a chance to make it 3 straight trips to the postseason to 1962 Mets territory. I've never seen a turnaround this fast. I would love to go back and listen to what the Pedro Grifol conversations were. Oh, we're into this. We're gonna have a special kind of team. Blah 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 blah. It's not all his fault. They put all their chips on a bunch of players, and the Moncadas and all of them all fell apart at the same time. But I've never seen a transition this fast. I've seen teams go from very, very good to very, very bad. The Mets of 1990 were still a 90-some-odd win team. The Mets of 1992 were a disaster, and by 93, they were a wreck. I've seen teams flip badly. The La Russa A's became very bad very fast, but not this bad. This is astonishing. And 120 losses are possible. And I don't know what to say about them. I mean, they're going to have to just draft well. This is not like, oh, well, we had a bad, like this is, I'd say blow the team up. I mean, there's nothing to blow up. So take a look at them. Sometimes, kind of like when you have a sore tooth and you kind of play with it with your tongue, or you watch a bad movie on Mystery Science Theater. This is truly astonishing. I don't want to see them lose 120 games. I think that would be sad. For A's fans, no, you're not the worst team in baseball, but holy Toledo. It's going to be fascinating to see what this team actually does when they start to take away and look at the pieces, because there is a lot to fix. And I can't help but wonder if they're trying to do this for Nashville. I hope not, but that's a topic for another day. All right, let's talk a little bit about our friends over at Game Time. You know, just the other day, I took my cousin to his first ever game at Oracle Park to see the Giants, and he thought it was a fantastic game, a fantastic stadium, and he loved the seats that we got. And I picked those seats using Game Time. Game Time, as you may or may not know, is the place to get tickets. It's an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball. It makes getting tickets faster and easier. And prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer you get to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and views from the seats, and the lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets. I know where I like to sit. I like to sit in the second row, behind home plate, a little bit up the first base line. And that's exactly where I got. They got the zone deals. They picked the section. Boom, great seats. But I knew they were great seats because I used the seat view. I got a panoramic view of the seat in the app before I buy it. Great, great app. So what you need to do is take the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Game Time. Last minute tickets, lowest prices. Do you know what they are? I'll tell you what they are. They're guaranteed. Hey, this is a reminder that Locked On has created the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or on the free Amazon Fire TV channel app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. All right, just quickly, a couple of things to bring up regarding the trade deadline. Don Petrie Jr. wrote to me, all due respect, Sully Baseball, you spent the past year saying the Orioles have been precious with their prospects and need pitching. They added 2 starters at bullpen depth while only losing Hayes off the MLB roster. The prospects they traded away are going to be there weren't going to be regular starters. And longtime listener, Panorama Jazz Band said, we didn't love giving up Norby or Stowers and only getting Rogers in our house. Corbin Burns only cost us DL Hall and Joey Ortiz. I do trust the Orioles front office. They have some big brains there. And he said everyone is overpaid for pitching this year. Missing Norby today because Westbrook is out with a hand fracture. Probably won't see him until the postseason. That was last year. I was just trashing the Orioles for not improving their starting pitching staff and clinging to the prospects. You're right. You're right. They did improve their pitching staff, and they did make some moves that will hopefully work. And one of the things I did anticipate is that this opened the door. Some of the moves they made opened the door for Jackson Holliday Jr., who might be ready now. They brought him up earlier this year. He wasn't ready. He came up the other day, hit a grand slam. That may also be a thing to rejuvenate the staff. A couple of people said that there was 7 new players on the team. I thought that was a hell of a lot of turnover. But I'm seeing from Oriole fans, the thought was, hey, we did trade away some of the excess prospects, managed to still keep the Jackson Holidays and some of the big prospects, and we needed pitching depth. We got pitching depth. So we'll see. Well, again, I'm going to talk about this a little bit tomorrow about the philosophy of the trade deadline. But, yeah, you know what? I've been proven wrong about some things. Although one thing I will point out, the trade deadline is come and gone. We're now in August, and the Mets are on the outside looking into the postseason. I'm just stating facts at this point. I will never understand with the Angels why they didn't trade Tyler Anderson, Rengifo. There was a couple other players with expiring contracts. The Angels don't have a farm system. They're not contending. People seem to be willing to overpay for a starting pitcher, especially when it was clear that the White Sox weren't going to deal. So why did the Angels made a few trades. They did bring a couple players in. It wasn't that they totally stood pat, but they had one of the prime trade chips in Anderson. They're not contending next year. I don't know when they're contending, but they have a horrible farm system, and they borderline sat pat. And they did this last year when they should have traded. Like I said this at last year's trade deadline. You either sign Ohtani to a long-term contract right now, or you trade him right now. You have to do one or the other. And they did neither. And they got nothing for Ohtani. They got 1 draft pick or whatever, but it was like the pushback I got from that is they'll never get fair value. Yeah, no kidding. But you'll be able to get something. So here are another 2 straight post-trade deadline autopsies where the Angels didn't do enough to improve their farm system. That's a useless trucker who's one of my regular listeners. Says, do you think the White Sox will set a new record for, I guess it's consecutive losses this season? It's at 23. Maybe. And trucker also asked me, Angels are saving their money for the next bust for the next big bust, like Rendon and Trout, who are injured, and they put $100 million in the IL. That's what they're waiting for. Fair enough. Sad to see Trout not be able to do it, but what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Hey, I tell you what you're going to do. You're going to answer the trivia question, which is this. And it's going to be to the White Sox and their postseason. Who was the last White Sox player to earn a postseason save for the White Sox? Who was the last person to earn a postseason save for the White Sox? That's your trivia question. Put it right down here in the YouTube. Try not to look it up. See if you know it by heart. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and Instagram. Check out Locked On A's. I'm going to talk a little bit about why I don't think the A's should change their name when they move. But we got a full slate of games coming up on this weekend, too. We're going to have a new show up on Friday as well. And sorry about the tech glitch. It happens. Talking about the Dodgers. Should they be worried? The White Sox, should they be ashamed? The Angels, should they explain something to us? And the Orioles, I think they did all right. This has been Locked On MLB. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.